Welcome back to the channel. We're back with our commander deck profile with the Spider-Man set. With Sensational Spider-Man, for 1 a white and a blue, you get a 3/3, where whenever this creature attacks, tap target creature defending player controls and put a stun counter on it. Then you may remove up to 3 stun counters from among all permanents. Draw cards equal to the number of stun counters removed this way. So it's potentially a draw 3 in the command zone, along with making sure that it could attack for some big commander damage. Well, really just 3, but tapping our opponent's stuff, making it so it can't block. We have plenty of ways to make sure we can proliferate those stun counters as well, so that our opponent's stuff could stay stunned and they still can't attack us, and ways to put some additional stun counters on them as well, so that we can get that draw power. But that's just the general overview of the deck. Let's get into it card by card. Starting off like we do in most decks, we have an Arcane Signet for some mana, Azori Signet for some mana. Brotherhood Regalia, we want to make sure he could attack without necessarily having to be blocked, because we're only tapping 1 creature. So let's make sure we could give it that unblockable. Felwar Stone for that extra mana. Hilda, Crown of Winter. Tap target creature, only costs 1 less to cast during our turn, but you also pay 3, sacrifice this, draw a card for each tap creature your opponent controls. If we're tapping and stunning all of our opponent's stuff, that's going to be all of their creatures. Lightning Grease, make sure Sensational Spider-Man can attack the turn he comes in, to make sure we get the stun counters and draw power right away. Mjolnir, Stormhammer. I mean, we're in a Marvel set. We gotta run Mjolnir, right? Whenever this enters the battlefield, attach it to target legendary creature, aka Spider-Man. Whenever equipped creature attacks, tap target creature defending player controls and put a stun counter on it. That is now 2 creatures we're tapping and stunning. Then deal damage to each opponent equal to the number of tap creatures that opponent controls. So that could be quite a bit of damage to our opponents. Soul Ring for that additional mana. Tyrannic Resonator to double up on Spider-Man's ability, getting us that additional stun counter onto all of our opponent's stuff. The second ability, you don't get the May, because it's a separate ability, so it's not considered a triggered ability. Swift Boots, for once again, we want to make sure Spider-Man can attack the turn he comes down. Sword of Truth and Justice deals combat damage to a player plus. Bleh. Whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, probably our Spider-Man. Then we're going to proliferate. We're going to proliferate all those +1/+1 counters we put on Spider-Man. Then we're going to proliferate all these stun counters on our opponent's stuff to make sure they can't untap. And we can just be a menace like J. Jonah Jameson thinks we are. Talisman of Progress for some additional mana. And Dod Vessel for that additional mana. For our creatures, we have Ambling Stormshell. Whenever this creature attacks, put 3 stun counters on it and draw a card. You could remove these stun counters from among all permanents. It doesn't necessarily have to be your opponent's permanents. So we can remove them from Ambling Stormshell, making sure you can attack again the very next turn. Whenever you cast a spell, turtle spell, untap this creature. We don't have any other turtle spells, but we have Spider-Man to untap them. We don't need them. Dreamtide Whale, another way to proliferate those +1/+1 counters, and stun counters, in order to make sure that we keep our opponent's stuff stunned, and we still draw the cards while we remove them. Fear Sleep Paralysis. Stun counters can't be removed from permanents your opponent's control. We still remove them from our stuff, though, because this prevents us from removing them with Sensational Spider-Man's ability. So it's a bit of a downside, but also the plus side, because we have all those plus stun counters, so we can just swing in. So it's definitely you have to be careful about when you cast this. Flood Pits, it also has some other ability, but whenever Sleep Paralysis or another enchantment control enters, or you fully unlock a room, which isn't going to happen, tap up to 1 target creature, put a stun counter on it. Flood Pit's Drowner, whenever this creature enters, tap target creature and opponent controls and put a stun counter on it. We like to see it. We like to put those stun counters on our opponent's stuff. Then we're going to proliferate it with stuff like Flux Channeler in order to proliferate anytime we cast a non-creature spell. Once again, the stun counters, the +1/+1 counters. Maybe if someone else has Toxic in their deck, we have a way to win by getting the proliferation. Grappling Kraken, whenever a land you control enters, tap target creature and opponent controls, put a stun counter on it. Another way to put those stun counters on our opponent's stuff, which will later proliferate with stuff like Grateful Apparition. Whenever it deals damage to a player or planeswalker, proliferate. Hilda of the Icy Crown, really good tap synergy commander here, where whenever you tap an untapped creature and opponent controls, you may pay 1. When you do choose 1, we get some blue elementals, we get some counters, or you get to scry and draw. Depends what we want at the time, really. Normally, it's going to be a +1/+1 counter, so we could proliferate. Then we could deal the commander damage with Spider-Man, but we'll see. Lulu's turn Guardian. Whenever an opponent attacks you, choose target creature choose target creature attacking you. Put a stun counter on that creature. It doesn't prevent the damage, but make sure that creature doesn't untap and attack you again next turn. Metastat, and then he goes proliferate for 4 mana. Metastatic Evangel, whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, proliferate. Another way to proliferate those stun counters. Shackle Slinger, whenever you cast your second spell each turn, which isn't that hard to do because most of our stuff is pretty low to the ground. Choose target creature and opponent controls. If it's tapped, put a stun counter on it, otherwise tap it. We're going to get plenty of stun counters on our opponent stuff. Why stop at just one? Let's get the draw power off it while we're at it. Sleep Curse Fairy enters the battlefield, tap with 3 stun counters on it, which we could just remove with Sensational Spider-Man's ability. So it's basically 3/3 with flying for Ward 2 for 1 mana. I'd like to see it. Summon Shiva, tap target creature and opponent controls, put a stun counter on it. We've seen the ability, we like the ability. And then once you get to the Dart ability, which we could potentially proliferate to, because these are the lore counters on it. Draw a card for each tap creature your opponents control. Depends on where we're at. Like, if we need to draw power, this is really good to proliferate to. If not, we could wait. Sunblast Angel. Enters battlefield, destroy all tapped creatures. We're tapping all of our opponent's stuff. We're hopefully not having to tap our stuff until we swing in. So, works for us. Tekudal Inquiry Dominus, recently reprinted, really good card. If we proliferate twice, we like to see it, because we're going to be proliferating a bunch. The Watcher in the Water, 5 mana for a 9/9. What's the downside? Enters the battlefield tapped with 9 stun counters on it. That's just more stun counters for us to remove for that additional draw power. And then whenever you draw a card during your opponent's turn, create a 1/1 blue tentacle creature token. And whenever a tentacle you control dies, untap it. Untap up to 1 target Kraken, and put a stun counter on up to 1 target non-land permanent. Guess who's a Kraken? Guess who gets untapped? Drumming Bird for some additional proliferation there. And then Zygon Infiltrator. Sorry, yep, I said what that does. Dream Mana, tap an untapped creature and put a stun counter on it. It also becomes a copy of that for as long as that creature remains tapped, so we could keep it stunned, we could be our opponent's best creature. Authority Consoles, to make sure our opponent's stuff enters tapped. This way it's even easier to swing in on them. And then we just need the stun counters. Next, Roll Tide. Whenever you cast a spell, proliferate. Another way gets more stun counters on our opponent's stuff. Kidnap. Enters tap enchanted creature. If the gift wasn't promised, put 3 stun counters on it. We put the stun counters on it. We can remove the stun counters from it. And then we also gain control of it. So, even if we put the stun counters on it, I think we benefit off that more than, having it come in untapped. Lost in the Maze, because otherwise it won't have haste, right? Yeah, it doesn't give it haste, so even if you gain control of the enchanted creature, you don't get to swing in with first turn. Lost in the Maze enters battlefield, tap X target creatures, put a stun counter on each of those creatures you don't control. We're going to be stunning all of our opponent's stuff, as we've been doing all deck. Scroll of Isildur, gain control of 1 target artifact for as long as you control this card. You're going to get our opponent's, what's it called? Soul Rings. And then tap up to 1 target creature, put a stun counter on each of them. Oh, sorry, 2 target creatures. Another thing that we could proliferate into, so we could swing in even easier. And draw a card for each tapped creature target opponent controls. If we could proliferate this twice, that's even better for us. Solitary Sanctuary. Enters battlefield, tap target creature and opponent controls, and put a stun counter on it. And then whenever you tap an untapped creature and opponent controls, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, allowing some additional damage there with Spider-Man. Verity Circle, whenever a creature and opponent controls becomes tapped, if it isn't being declared as an attacker, you draw a card. That's going to be drawing us a lot of cards with this deck. And then on to the second half of the deck, which is actually 37, 51, 60 cards, so really more than half. Arcane Denial for a counterspell, so that they can't get their stuff out in the first place. Bluster Squall, tap target creature you don't control, or overload it to tap all creatures you don't control. For just 4 mana, that's pretty good. Counterspell, Dovin's Veto for some more counterspells. Experimental Augury, another way to proliferate, but also, a bit of a brainstorm there, just for the, what's it called? Reordering stuff on the top of our deck. Generous gift for some removal. Out cold. Spell can't be countered. Tap up to 2 target creatures and put a sun counter on each of them. And we investigate, so we get that little bit of extra draw power, but also tapping all of our opponent's stuff. Path to Exile for some removal. Serum Snare for the extra proliferation and counterspell. Steady Progress, another way to proliferate, and a little bit of draw power. A little bit overcosted for Dream Mana, but still pretty good. Succumb to the Cold. Tap 1 or 2 target creatures an opponent controls. Put a sun counter on each of them. Different way of wording, like out cold essentially, but you don't get the, what's it called? Glue token. That's why it's 1 mana less. Source Plowshares for removal. Trap the Trespassers. Each player votes for a creature you don't control. Then those votes are revealed. For each creature with 1 or more votes, put that many sun counters on it, then tap it. You know, way to potentially have you and your opponents all vote for the same creature so that we could just, have that thing out of here for a little bit. Also, that's a really fun part about the Spider-Man deck is it could be a bit of a group hug like aspect of like I'll let you untap your stuff. I'll remove your +1/+1 counters if you agree to something like help me team up on that guy. But at least you'll get to play the game. Wicked Slumber, Convoke, tap up to 2 target creatures, put a sun counter on either of them, and then put a sun counter on either of them. So we get to choose like either 2 on 1 or 1 on each. Arid Rescue Mission, tap up to 3 target creatures, put a sun counter on one of them. Another way to make sure our opponent's stuff gets tapped, and a little bit of sun counters while we're at it. Don't move, destroy all tapped creatures, aka all of our opponent's stuff, none of ours, and until your next turn, whenever a creature becomes tapped, aka when we tap our opponent's stuff, we destroy it as well. So it's an even better board wipe for our purposes. Freeze in place, tap target creature and opponent controls, put 3 sun counters on it, scry 2, potentially draw 3 after that. Impede momentum, tap target creature, put 3 sun counters, scry 1, basically the same one, just scrying 1 instead of 2. Involuntary cooldown, tap up to 2 target artifacts or creatures, put stun counters onto each of them. We could stun our opponent's soul rings if we really need to. Split up, destroy all tapped creatures, aka all of our opponent's stuff because they're all going to be stunned. Stall out, tap target creature or vehicle, 3 stun counters on it. No scrying this time around, but you could cycle it. So I don't know, I feel like what you like better, I guess, with these ones. Deft of Dreams. Sorry, I can't really read some of the arts on this. For each tapped creature your opponent has in play, you draw a card. That could be a lot of draw power on top of the Spider-Man draw power. And then Tranquilize. Tap target creature your opponent controls, put a sun counter on it. And no scrying, no cycling on this one. And then, as always, I'll just scroll through the lands. But just like to say thanks so much for tuning into the video. If you guys like the video, make sure you like the video. If you guys want to see more like this, make sure you subscribe so you can stay tuned for more as we're trying to cover all the Spider-Man commanders, which there's some that are pretty same to one another, so we'll see. But overall, hope you have a great rest of the day.